Three, two, one, and Chris, we're on again. This is SHB Unfiltered, the podcast episode number
49.
49, which means we have been recording and podcasting for 49 consecutive days. Myself and Chris have been here day in, day out since the start of lockdown, since the start of quarantine, lockdown, self-isolation. The names changed throughout those 49 days, Chris. What are we doing? 2 meters, 4 meters, social distancing. The world has changed so much since we started this podcast. And to be honest, I think we've changed as well. The amount we've learned and gained, the amount of skills we have developed doing this. So for 49 days has, I wouldn't say flown by, but looking back, it does feel like we've done a lot, but it doesn't feel like we've spent 49 days on this. What do you think?
To be honest, for me, it has, I wouldn't say flown by, but it has gone quick. I speak to a lot of other people and they're so bored at home and they don't know what to do, climbing the walls. And as a result of that, I know that some people are beginning to create their own rules when it comes to lockdown, lifted it themselves and become more relaxed about it. But I think because we've kept focused and we've got something that we're committed on, it's actually helped me to be more strict about it. It's actually helped me to keep focused, keep my mind working. And when we do eventually go back to work, I don't think it will be such a jump, if you know what I mean.
I definitely agree with that because it's quite strange when people say, oh, they're bored, they have so much time on their hands, because I feel like I feel fortunate because we've had the charity there. We've been able to focus more time on it, and that has actually created more work. Because think about the amount of work you've been doing on the grant side of things, comms, etc., and focusing on growing the back end of the charity, the back end of your cousin's podcast, learning about this one and improving. To be honest, we've had kind of opportunities in the past to do this, but haven't had the time. However, this has given us opportunity to actually delve into this new territory, I think, and is going to serve us well going forward post-lockdown. Regarding this podcast episode, I feel like this is very topical at the moment for the two of us, especially. And within the stuttering community, other people have started doing podcasts or thinking about it. People have inquired with me. I've been invited now on about 3 or 4 podcasts. Actually, tomorrow morning, I will not be available for the webinar, unfortunately. I know I'm very naughty, right?
Oh.
Very, very naughty. But I'm a guest on another podcast at 8:30 in the morning. And this one is pretty cool. So this isn't stuttering related at all. It isn't stuttering related at all. But this is a minute. But with this podcast, this is purely about people within the Sri Lankan Tamil community, or Tamil community in general, as in Tamils are in many, many countries. But Tamil community who just doing cool things in their life and challenging the status quo that our predecessors have placed. And so I've been invited to share my story, share kind of the work we're doing on that platform. And yeah, it got me thinking like, this is really cool. This is connecting people in a different way. And on the back of that, I wanted to talk about a couple of things before I go on and also probably pick your brains on certain things. And the first thing I wanted to ask you was, I've got kind of a set of things that the host wants to discuss, because she knows high level, very high level, like what we're about, but she's gonna ask kind of basic things to us, but more complicated to other people. What is stuttering, and things about kind of overcoming challenges. So I wanted to ask you these questions first, because this is an opportunity to present stuttering to a new audience. How do you think I should answer these questions, first of all? So what is stuttering?
Yeah, that's a question that can be so open-ended. It can go any way, and people usually expect you to just say it's when an individual tries to speak and they're physically unable to do so. But it's so much more than that. It depends what kind of level or depth they want you to go into, but I'm assuming that they will want you to explain as much as you can within the time frame that they give you. I would be relating my answer to not only the physical side, but I would also explain how it manifests in the psychological side. I would be focusing heavily on avoidance, and I would also be explaining how much it affects people on a mental health basis. Those are the main points that I would focus on when explaining to the masses what stuttering is, because their view of it usually is just someone struggles to get the words out at times. They do not really get the full picture.
Yeah, it's too basic, isn't it? Way too basic.
Yeah, it's just because they're potentially misinformed. They haven't been around people that stutter. They do not know anyone that stutters, and there's not that much coverage on it, really.
The other thing is, even if they are around, or if they know people who stutter, they're probably misinformed anyway, because there's so much out there. There's so many differing views that if you're not in touch with any group within the stuttering community, then it's pot luck as to what people read and assume.
Yeah. I would also go into explaining to them how many people are affected by it in the world, which I think will definitely shock a lot of people.
Definitely.
To think that
Definitely.
it is, even though you think, okay, 1% of the population, that's not much, but it's a lot of people. Like, it's still a hell of a lot of people. So yes, you will be talking about the repetition of blocks and the struggles and the secondary behaviors, but to really give them the full picture, I would go into everything else that I mentioned before previously. I would also point it out that it is a registered disability now. I would also point that out because I don't think people are fully aware of that, which I think that people need to be made aware of, because if they're not, then they have the tendency to not take it as serious or not realize how serious it can be for the individual.
Definitely. I'm just going to check when stuttering became a registered disability, because that is a good. When did stuttering become a registered disability?
I think
Because
it's something to
I
do with the
think,
Equality Act 2010.
yeah, that's when it was entered into the act. But I want to check um, if it was recognized earlier than that,
Mm-hmm.
or at the same time. Either way, I'm going to find out if there's any information on the STAMR website. The Equality Act says that person has a disability to have an impairment which has substantial and long-term adverse effect. Equality Act 2010. The rabbit hole. I'm just clicking through. Yeah, it's really vague. Useful links.
Yeah.
Not very useful links as well. All right, cool.
The only thing that it does say is the Equality Act 2010.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm going to go through a rabbit hole search this evening while I do my work and stuff. But so yeah, that's really, really useful, Chris, because I already have an idea of how I'm going to kind of introduce the topic of stuttering and present an accurate picture of what it is, because potentially it's more important to illustrate the psychological struggles, because that's what people can't see. And one thing I was going to ask you, actually, just on a side note, it's going to happen at some point, but let's take some bets. At what point do you think the King's Speech will be mentioned?
I reckon
10 minutes in? 15?
No, well before that, because when they ask you about what stuttering is, they're usually going to say, "Is it like how it is in the King's Speech?" That's what I've had before. They may not, but I've had that before. So I think it will be mentioned quite early on. It depends. Are you going there purely to raise awareness for stuttering and what you do in a stuttering community, considering the background you've come from? Or is it more to do with the background that you come on and the stutter is just a side thing?
No, so this is more like an interview with me, first of all, and kind of the perspective I bring from stuttering, because the premise of this podcast is people doing different things and challenging the status quo within the community. So actually, stuttering is a taboo thing within the community. Mental health is a massive taboo. People don't want to talk about it, don't want to talk about suicide, don't want to talk about autism and any kind of thing related to mental health or like genetic deficiencies. And so this is my opportunity to actually present something like this, because I think so far I don't think they've had anyone talking about this kind of aspect from someone who actually experiences it themselves. I will also be the first guy on the podcast, so this would be a good opportunity to actually be transparent, because for guys it isn't always easy to talk about vulnerabilities and all that kind of stuff. It's easier to keep a more formidable exterior. So yeah, definitely. If you think of anything else on those lines to add, if you feel there's important messages that should be shared on this platform, please do tell me. Now, with this topic today, podcasting, so vague. I know, I'm very sorry. However, I brought this up because, look, in the end, we are doing a daily podcast. It's been fantastic. However, Chris, like all good things, what happens to all good things?
They unfortunately have to come to an end at some point.
Definitely. And we are at episode 49, which means tomorrow is the big day, Golden Jubilee, the big number 50. And with 50 means we have reached a significant milestone in our progress and our the progress of the podcast. What I wanted to talk about with you was life after the podcast, because I know This will change to weekly or bi-weekly, depending on circumstances. However, where do you see this podcast going? What direction do you want to take it in? Will it be this conversation between two of us talking about concepts? Do you want guests? Do you want me to leave, go on? What do you want from this? Tell us your thoughts and just tell us your vision for the next year or the next 6 months.
I think it would be really good to do a lot more interview-based podcasts. I think it would be good to get a lot more people who stutter that are really active within their own environments and they're really smashing life. I think we need more figureheads like that in the stuttering community, and I think that we should be playing our part in bringing them to light more. I think it would be good to give them a platform to inspire and motivate others. But I do think that we're inevitably not going to be able to keep this up as often as or produce podcasts as often as we are at the moment. They will be going down to 1 or 2 a month. I think 2 a month could be feasible, but I wouldn't want to place too much pressure on us to commit to that straight away. I think that 1 a month, and I think a good mixture. I think a good mixture of interview-based debates as well, because there's a lot of people that have different opinions and different views and come from different parts of the stuttering community, different organizations. And I still think it's cool to get involved. I really enjoyed our one with Kenny, even though he comes from a different organization. And yeah, I think that for me is or could be a good future for the podcast. To get a lot more interviews in with key figures in the stuttering community and outside of the stuttering community, to give them a platform to motivate and inspire.
Cool. That sounds really good, and it's something we have to actively think about now, because we can't put it off. We have the live feed right now, which is incredible. It's doing kind of so much good for us personally, and people are enjoying it. However, we have to keep adapting. And we have adapted to coronavirus crisis, being stuck in our houses. But now we have to adapt again to actually being allowed to carry on with life outside your house. So that's a new adaptation, because this podcast, this structure was purely built for this purpose, just for this 1 hour, 2 hour period every evening. Things will change now, personal schedules. However, when you said every 2 weeks, once a month, I was like, what, Chris? I was thinking about every week, or at worst case every 2 weeks. So I guess that's something we have to clarify ourselves, because we aren't sure what we want to do yet. And you can see by the difference in the answers we gave. What I want to ask you as well is, has your opinion now changed, or has your mind changed from back at the start of the year when we were talking about podcasts and 1 a week, 2 a week structure we can do? How has your mind now completely changed as to how this would be implemented?
I'd say now I've got a lot more respect for people that see podcasts through and they commit to it and they do get to their 100th episode, because you look at podcasts on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, Spotify, you see 100 episodes, 150 episodes, and you don't really take much notice of it. But when you go to launch your podcast and you realize what is involved, I realized why it wasn't an easy thing to implement in January. I realized what you were saying. Listen, CJ, this is not easy. It's not just going to be we turn up and whatever happens, happens. That's not how podcasts or successful podcasts, that's not how they work. And I was pretty naive to that at the time. I thought, okay, how hard can it be? Just get a few mics, show up, get in a room, and whatever happens. We have a conversation about stuttering. It's my opinion, Ruben's opinion, Ayo's opinion. Whoever wants to come can come. But it's really not like that at all. So my mind has completely shifted. And that's why I was saying perhaps twice a month, once a month, because it really does take commitment. And right now, none of us know what our schedules are going to be like going back to work after such a long time. Ayo, what's Ayo's plans going to be? What are my plans going to be? So yeah, it's completely changed. And that's why I'm beginning to really plan it out now and really think about it, because it's not something that we can just take for granted and not work out and plan if we're going to keep up momentum and we're going to keep putting out good content.
Definitely. And plus, time will change. I'm looking forward to getting back into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. I can't remember the last time I put gi on, because I didn't go. I don't think I've been there since Feb, because I had the wedding, and we're in May now. It's like 3 months, man. 3 months. I'll probably start again now. It is frustrating, isn't it?
How many stripes you got on your white belt?
Basics, three.
3 more than me, man.
But it doesn't take a long time to get the white belt stripes. But more importantly, just at that level, as soon as you don't go for a period of time, you lose a lot. Like, you lose so much.
You're 3-stripe white belt, yeah? So it's 4 stripes, and then you can go to your blue belt.
Thing is, like, I think 4 or 5, but I think it's 5. However, like, I can get to the 5th stripe within the next 2 or 3 months. But I still have to wait like 1 year or more, or maybe 2 years to actually get the skill level up to be promoted, because and that's the right way, I think, as well, because I'd rather be undergraded than overgraded. I'd rather be operating at a blue belt, but as a 5th stripe white belt for 6 months, even 12 months as well, and then go to blue belt when I'm deep into it, because very off topic, but as in, if I'm still at that level, but still on the white belt, then it means I can compete in the white belt tournaments and kind of like really experience the competition circuit. If I get to blue belt before that point, and you got to start again, because you'll be up against all the 3, 4, 5 stripe blue belts. So I'd rather get a lot of experience in a white belt before going into blue belt, because I want to go into blue belt with a lot of competition experience.
Yeah, it's not about how long you've been a part of a club or how long you've been training. It's about the mat time. It's about the hours that you've put in. I know we're still going off topic, but quickly, I met a guy who's a purple belt, and he's been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 15 years. Now, everybody knows if you're dedicated and you're attending 3, 4, 5 times a week, you should be able to get your black belt within 10. But it's because he took gaps and he had time off. And that's one thing that I like about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And you can relate it to a lot of you could transfer the discipline and the mindset to a lot of other things in your life, because it's not about how long you've been doing it. It's not about my skill set on podcasting is not reflected by how long I've had this microphone. It's about how many podcasts I've put out. How many have I recorded? How many people have I met through it? How many different types of podcasts have I tried to implement? How are they interviews? Are they debates? And that's one thing that I've learned, especially from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
One thing about the podcast invite tomorrow that's going to be interesting, from my perspective, is I'm going to be on there as a pure guest, and I don't think I've done that since we were on The Be Kind podcast. Is that what it was called? Sorry.
Yeah, the Be Kind podcast. Yeah,
the Be Kind podcast, and that was a few months ago, Chris. A few months ago. So this has been me kind of at the mercy of another host in a different setting. So yeah, it will be an interesting conversation. I'm actually looking forward to it. Looking forward to it a lot.
Have you had the questions yet? Because I know that some people run their podcast like that. They send we don't run our podcast like that at the moment. It's just impromptu.
Dude, no way. No, but I think we'd be different if this was every week or two, because then we'd have to structure it better, because we aren't putting it on with as much frequency. This is literally just this is a gas chat between the two of us with some mics and the video on, right? But it's not complete gas.
Good quality gas, though.
Good quality, man. Good quality, man. Good quality. But if we were on less frequency, I'd be a lot more structured. There'd be templates, questions, topics, punctuality, requirements for where you are as well. Ayo Adesanya, I hope you're listening. So that's why daily works for us, because like I said, for this to work, this is all about frequency. And going forward, this is our USP. Regardless of how many plays or downloads and all that kind of stuff, our USP was we turned up every day. And no one can take that away from us.
No, exactly right. Exactly right. It's not about the plays, it's not about the likes. It's about setting yourself a goal, setting yourself a target, and actually meeting it. And that is something. How you do anything is how you do everything.
And if I'm being honest, like personal podcasting. So I've been transparent with you and said, at some point post quarantine COVID, I'm going to start my own podcast where I'll be interviewing people from different walks of life. So that was a personal goal for me. And you obviously have your own ideas and plans with your cousin, with your sister, etc. And SHB Unfiltered was actually started. I think I told you why I wanted to start it, right?
Remind me.
Oh, CJ, you can't remember. But we were having conversations over Zoom before lockdown started. And on the first official day, I think we were talking about something really cool. And I said, Chris, let's just record this. And this can be episode 1.
Oh, yeah. I thought that we had a conversation prior and you said, okay, no. I understand we're talking about it.
And this effectively started off as practice, podcast practice, speech practice. But it was only after we went past episode 7 where I thought, okay, so now we're on to something now, because we've gone past the sweet spot, and every day was becoming easier. So that's when we started to put structure in and put a lock on the door for Zoom. Eventually set up the Podbean account and started going on a few platforms. But this has purely been trying to interact with our stuttering counterparts in the world of Facebook, but also our platform to experiment, to grow, and just enjoy. And I feel like some of the best conversations I've had with you have been on this podcast.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I would definitely have to agree with that, because when you meet up and we're working on a charity, it's very much work focused, work related. It's not often that we get to just have a chat as mates, and it's not often that we get to chat about stuttering as a whole. It's always about what we're going to do next, what we're implementing, the back end stuff, advice, where do we think we're going. We have to write strategies, we have to pitch to grant campaigns and all this stuff. So yeah, to have this time, it's actually been really good. It's actually been really good to just be able to do the back end stuff alone and not have to make that our friendship and with AO, as opposed to like now we can have our chats, we can have good conversations, and everything is getting done at the same time.
Definitely. The power of Zoom during COVID-19. Zoom is the official sponsor of SHB on Voter, I think, without really sponsoring us. But thank you, Zoom. Give a shout out.
Well, we're actually sponsoring them, to be honest, because
Oh, yes, we are.
Subscription, but
We are. CJ, what did you expect when we first started this? So thinking back, can you remember episode 1, 2, 3? And what did you expect this to evolve into or turn into? Same word, one's fancier.
I'll be honest, the first few episodes actually turned out to what I expected. I thought it would be a chat, it'd be general chat. But I didn't expect it to just be me and you after a while, to be honest. I thought that
I kind of saw that happening, actually. I kind of saw that coming at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't personally. I thought that it would be all of us all the time, which isn't a problem. That it's not. Other people got commitments and stuff to do. I knew that we would see this through because we committed at the beginning, and I know what type of person you are, Ruben. I know that once you put your mind to something, that's it. Like nothing stopping you. And I like to think that I'm the same. But in terms of the content, in terms of some of the guests that we've had on, I didn't expect it to turn that way. There's been a couple guests that I didn't expect to have on at all, especially from organizations that they're from or whatever, which has been really cool. I think what's changed, what I think has been a massive contrast to what I thought, is how many people tune in. I thought that it would literally just be us. We would go live. We'll have the odd one person. No one would comment, and we'd be using this to build our momentum. I didn't expect momentum to be built this quick. I know that consistency is the key to all success, but I thought that this podcasting thing, after a few episodes, I thought, okay, not much has really happened. And yes, it is as hard as everyone says. But then I think after like 6 or 7 episodes, everything just seemed to be a lot more consistent. Like people tuning in was more consistent because we were more consistent, I felt anyway, which I wasn't expecting. I thought by now we still wouldn't have any listeners at all, which I wasn't fussed about, but that's just what I expected.
Do you know what's cool though? Because we've had similar people see us through from the start to kind of where we are now. We've kind of brought them along on our journey, like in this journey through our minds and our opinions and our experiences, telling our stories to them. Like I've said, these have been some of the best conversations we've had, but other people now are actually tuning into these conversations, which is kind of strange when you think about it, because they've seen our friendship grow. Yeah. And the other thing is, they've been with us from the start, so they've seen this podcast grow. They've seen our ability behind the mic, behind the scenes to grow, and I just feel kind of thankful. It isn't like a vast amount of people, but I'm thankful for who they are, because they're real champions of the stuff we do. I'm kind of probably a bit surprised about the response within the stuttering community. There hasn't been like a mass kind of rally behind us, but at the same time, I'm not entirely surprised, because It's just the way stuttering communities operate. I know one particular group is busy planning their pub quiz next week, so fully understand that time is premium. But we are rolling into episode 50 tomorrow. And when it's all said and done, someone tells me like, how was quarantine and how was lockdown? Dude, I reached 50 episodes of my podcast. Chris, you can say the same thing. You reached 50 episodes of your podcast.
Yeah, it's crazy because you see all these memes going around with like the future an old man explaining to their grandchild what COVID-19 was like and that it's such a terrible time. But for me, I won't be describing it as the most unproductive time for me. I wouldn't be describing it as, oh, it was terrible and everything that I worked for, I lost. And I won't be telling those kind of stories. I would be telling you, I learned so much about myself during this time. I learned that there was other things that I enjoyed. I used it as a time to explore other things that I would never have even considered exploring before. And this podcast is definitely one thing that I'm very proud to be a part of, especially during this time. Because this time is so easy for people to just watch Netflix, watch every series, every episode. Like everyone is going mad about Ozark and everyone's playing PlayStation. And at the beginning,
Chris,
of lockdown,
I was going to say we are on episode 6 of Ozark, season 1. Actually, it's pretty good.
Now, good. I've heard a lot of people watch it. I really want to watch it, but priorities have changed for me. Previously, that would have been my priority, but I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to learn. At the beginning of lockdown, I was on eBay. I was trying to get a PS4 because I gave my PS4 to my cousin Chris, and I wasn't going to demand it back now because I knew he wanted it. But I was trying to find one everywhere, and people put the price up, and I was prepared to pay it. And then I thought, but are you really going to waste your time sitting on the PlayStation all this time? And I'm happy. I think one of the best decisions that I've made during this COVID-19 is that I did not invest in a PlayStation. Otherwise, things could have gone a lot differently for me. Not to say that I have an opinion on people that play PlayStation all day. I don't. I'm just saying for me personally, I am happy that I've learned a few more things and I've grown during this time.
I've got to say, actually, regarding the Netflix thing, this is actually the most I've ever watched Netflix, because before this, I didn't really watch TV shows, but this has been a good chance to actually watch seasons along with my wife. So we've been watching along, then discussing after episodes, but we don't like binge. We watch one episode a day of a series. And when it comes to weekend, we may watch 2. So one at lunch, then one at dinner, and then talk about it. And that's our kind of like quality time, because she's in the middle of her book, and then I'm reading chapters and stuff, and then I'm bouncing ideas of the podcast with her. I'm up in the morning doing seminars and reading clubs with SHB. But the surprising thing I've done alongside all this, which is also surprising, is I've been disciplined to actually wake up every day at 6:30. And that's been a real game changer, because it could have been so easy to stay in bed till like 8:58. So easy, right? However,
8:58.
yeah. However,
well, I'm guilty of having a lie in here and there. I am guilty of that, but I would say though, Ruben, and not just because you're here with me, but I would say if anyone is entitled to cut themselves a little bit of slack and have a bit of quality time and watch a bit of Netflix now, you are that person. Because when the world was pre-COVID-19, you were always the one pushing me. I used to look at you like you're you're committed, you're dedicated, you pick up new skills, you put your mind to something and you follow it through. And I remember talking about things on Netflix that you hadn't seen. It wasn't really something that you were interested in. So yeah, to be honest, I'm not surprised that you want to explore Netflix during a time like this, because you've done more than enough work previous. Where me, on the other hand, I wasn't really venturing out into anything else other than my business and coming home.
It's funny you say that as well, because when we were watching Power, so we finished Power, I think last week or the week before. I was pretty surprised at like the reach of Netflix, because every day I'd put it on, search for Power, and it would come out with Power Rangers as well. And I was massive fan of Power Rangers back in the day, massive fan, to a point where I watched it way into teenage years as well. I used to go back and watch the old things as well. And Power Rangers is actually really interesting because, 1 minute, I need to clear my throat quickly.
I used to love Power Rangers as well.
Did you know that, you probably did, but do you know where the fight scenes are from Power Rangers?
No.
So the Americans, they didn't actually create the fight scenes at all. Chris, I can't hear you.
Asia?
Yeah, so there's a Japanese series called Super Sentai that was made in the 80s. So the Americans, I forgot the company, but they bought some of the rights from Saban, the Japanese producer, the Japanese label. So they got the fight scenes, and all the Americans had to do was actually create the plots. So they'll create the plots around the fight scenes. So that's why you saw like a lot of stock footage. That's one thing.
Makes sense now.
And that's why you saw, because the budget was so much smaller in America. That's why some of the scenes they created, you saw like a drop in quality in the costumes compared to the actual fight scenes, where it was all like the armor was like proper, like nice. Yeah. So I actually started to watch Super Sentai as well. And Super Sentai was actually wicked. The plots were on a different level. It was mad. Do you remember the first season with the like Green Ranger coming in, Tommy, and who was bad? He became good.
I don't remember it that clearly. But
do you remember the basic plot? Do you remember the basic plot? He was bad first of all, then he became good. Just a new kid in school. Yeah. So in Super Sentai, so in the American version, Tommy was just a brand new kid in school. He got picked up by the evil people. They gave him the green power. Then he fought bad for a bit, but then he got turned to the good side. In Super Sentai, back in the day, there were two kingdoms, and they had some big war, and one of the kingdoms, they basically killed the bad king. The bad king had a son, but he had two different sons with two different queens. Now they killed the bad king, and then they kept the second son, but the first son saw his dad getting killed, and he ran away. The first son is the Green Ranger, the bad one. The second one, the baby, is the Red Ranger. And it was only in the future that they were like half brothers, and they grew up, and then they had the war against each other. But it was some complicated, like deep plot with like family history and roots and stuff. Then the Americans just took that out and just turned it into like two high school kids just
the most
duking it out.
Basic of plots.
But so I went into like a rabbit hole for a bit watching Super Sentai, and it was really, really cool. So with Netflix now, I'm actually kind of like exploring a bit, but I haven't gone watching season after season, but I've just been picking out different episodes of things. There's a few other Japanese things and then Korean shows that are really good. So it's been cool to actually see like a wide range of things, because after quarantine's over, I don't think I'll have the time to actually do that. So it's been nice to actually revisit childhood things, but also like explore shows from different cultures. And
Yeah. I think for me, I have watched two series on Netflix, but during this COVID-19, but they were Tiger King, which only had 3 episodes, I believe. Was it 3 or 4? Can't remember.
I think it's 6 or 7, dude.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I watched that, which was like in the first couple of weeks, because I remember talking to you about it on the podcast or before podcast. And the other thing that I've just begun to watch at night when I get into bed is One Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary about Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman. That's it. So that's cool, but that's obviously basketball related. I have to watch that, so I'll make time for that.
That's one thing I haven't actually done that much of. That I'm actually surprised with is I haven't watched that many documentaries. So I'll have to actually do some research, because there's so much out there, so much. It's so easy to like see different things, but I have to pick out things that I can actually incorporate, because it's all good accumulating information, but
I've got a question.
Take action. Go for it.
Yeah, I've got a question for you. So, how much do you think the type of books you read help you with the podcast? Because I think that podcasting and reading, even though one's obviously vocal and one's a book, I think that the information you can pick up can be easily transferable and really help you take podcasting to the next level. And that's something that I've got to explore a lot more. So within this time period, I know you like to read a lot, Ruben. Anything that you've read that you feel has really contributed to making this a smoother ride, or not really? Which is fine if you say no, not really. But just a question that I had for you.
If I'm being honest, there hasn't been anything that's been like kind of massive and changed things now. I read Crush It by Gary Vee, and the audiobook I told you about, how to gain 1 million followers within a month. And apart from that, just been watching a few video podcasts and reading articles. But to be honest, the main thing I've gained in this period is actually applying, taking action. Because I've spent so long reading. 2018, 2019, I read hell of a lot. And I thought, you know what, this year is a good chance to actually apply it, because Gary Vee, he says one thing: research is procrastination in disguise. And that's an interesting kind of line to use, because it's easy to justify research sometimes. You can tell yourself, I'm just researching. There comes a point when you have to actually take action. And one of the most useful things I watch for that is Brian Rose's London Real podcast with Dan Pena, the $50 million man. So he literally coaches high-level, high-performance people to take action. He coaches people into high performance. And watching kind of like his message and stuff like that, very controversial. He divides opinion, but he encourages you to break fear and take action, take action. And it is easy to hide behind books. It is easy to hide behind. It is easy to hide behind books, hide behind courses, seminars. You got to mix it up, and of course, like, research is important. But I learn mostly through trial and error. That's my learning style. And even if it's like sports related, if I watch a submission, I don't really fully learn it until I do it a few times and have to correct it and get pushed around. And they said, no, put your hand here, put your hand here. Because I learn through trial and error. It's just the way I'm built. I can learn through other things, but it takes longer and gaps. But if I want to learn something properly, I have to actually apply it, and then it will stick. And the same with the podcast. I've been going to courses and reading stuff for so long, but actually implementing it and smashing out all these episodes, back end, front end, audio, it's all been mad. But I've learned so much. And that's the gift you can get from creating a podcast. You are creating something for yourself. And the like front to back end, it's been a really good experience. Really, really good.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that people can take from that. Like, for example, what happened to us today, unless we've been applying what we've learned, unless we've actually been doing podcasts consistently, we wouldn't be able to be agile. You know, if you read a book on how to live stream on Facebook every day for a month, and all of a sudden you've come onto your Zoom platform and the live feed isn't working, what happens then? Do you give up? Do you not do your daily podcast for the day? No. But it's only through application that you learn alternatives. You learn how things can work. You learn how you can maneuver. And also it's through application where I believe action creates motivation as well. I believe once you implement something, once you get a feel for it, once you get more comfortable with it, that becomes infectious and you want to continue it. For example, people ask me they ask me this question a lot. How much did university help you to run your business? And I'd say, like, hardly any, if I'm honest. I reckon after launching a business, I learned more in 3 months than I did in 4 years at uni. And that's just through applying, because things are not always as they seem. Things are not the same. Things are not as clear as you read it in a textbook or a book. Once you implement things, things change, and one thing may not be in the right place that you expect it to. And the only way you're going to learn how to deal with those situations is if you experience them. And it's the same with working on your speech. That's why you got to give it time. You have to persist. You have to persevere, and you cannot give up. And you got to enjoy the journey.
That's really, really, a really important message for people to take from this. Whoever is listening or watching this podcast, this should be a lesson on taking action, regardless of if you're ready or not, or what facilities you have. When we first started, I was literally doing the first episode in bed, but now I've got a small room, lights, a mic, and everything around me, notes, post-it notes, and it's just grown and grown. And we've both grown in this process. Both our hairs have grown. I've got my Alice band on still, and it doesn't look like we're going to get haircuts anytime soon. So, like, while our hair grows, we can grow as well, Chris, right?
Exactly that. And as our beard grows as well, in my case.
Yes. Any final words before we wrap up number 49, Chris? Number 49.
Just a really important message in this podcast today, guys. Regardless of what you read or what you listen to, it's all about applying, taking action. So do not hold back. Do not procrastinate. get stuck in as soon as you can, and you will learn along the way.
Take action before you're ready, right? And learn from the process. CJ, Chris, thank you very, very much for 49 fantastic episodes. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. And we're going to make it special.
That's a massive milestone.
We're going to make it special tomorrow. Make it special. So thank you very much. And I'll let you put this one away. Go for it, dude.
Ruben, thank you very much. I'm Chris Jackson. You've been listening to the SHB Unfiltered Podcast, episode 49, where we've been discussing podcasting. Take action before you are ready. Remember, stop holding back.